Stories are one of the most powerful resources and tools that are used all throughout human history to engage people, to discuss ideas, to teach lessons, right? And the Qur'an, therefore, because the Qur'an is addressing us, humanity, the Qur'an addresses so many of its very important lessons, morals, ethics, principles through stories, right? Stories of the past. And maybe one of the most well-known stories of the Qur'an that is very, very, I don't like the word popular because it has a weird kind of social media connotation, but it's just very well known.
Yeah.
It's well documented. It's very widely discussed. And for good reason as well, because it's recommended by the Prophet ﷺ every single Friday, is the story of the young men who took refuge in the cave while they were trying to save their deen and their religion. Ashabul Kahf, we call them, the companions of the cave. And it's a really remarkable story. It's miraculous. And right before we started, you had made the point, and I'll set you up with this, that people, I don't think the distracted is the right word. You didn't use that word. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it being distracted because Allah mentions the miracle.
Yeah.
But I do think that people never make it past the miracle to the actual moral. There's a miracle and then there's the moral behind the miracle.
I like that.
But people get stuck in the miracle and they never make it to the moral. And let's just kind of take it from there.
Yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think this is brilliant because a lot of times the students, I notice two extremes when it comes to this. And we can get into the story, but just that point you made versus how much do we focus on the moral, how much do we focus on the details of the story? And Mufti Kamani, you can comment on this because we were talking right before we started shooting. I often tell the students this. When Allah was proving through the Prophet's words that he was a prophet of Allah. And so he was being informed of details that he shouldn't have known. And the people of the book are like, well, how does he know that?
Yeah.
How does he know that?
Yeah. Specifically the Jews.
Yeah.
Because that was the question came from them.
Exactly. And so he's being given enough details for people who know the story to be like, yo, where did he get that from?
Yeah.
You
weren't there.
On the right side of the mountain.
Yeah.
Or there's another surah where it's تماثيل وجفان كالجواب وقدور الراسيات. A lot of the students is talking about Solomon's temple.
Yeah.
And it's talking about all these small little things. And the students are sometimes like, why all these details?
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
You either want the details or don't.
Yeah.
Meaning, what I mean by that is when it goes into details, we're kind of like, wow, why all the details? And when there's no details, we're like, oh, didn't he know more about the story? So the Qur'an, min janibillah, it gives us enough of the story that you would know he didn't get this from himself, number one. But then, because it's not a history book, it's not a story book.
Yeah, it's not a novel.
Then we move on to the objective, which is life-altering lessons, timeless lessons that regardless of what century you live in, you will be able to extract lessons by which you live by.
Guidance,
right?
It's a book of guidance.
Book of guidance.
And there are certain mufassirun who really, they're just masters of their discipline. So when and where it does go into a little bit more detail, they are able to beautifully kind of find the moral and the lesson there, which brings it back to that same point of it's ultimately a book of guidance. It only gave a detail here because this detail is a part of that guidance.
Amazing. So,
وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ. Why is it talking about how the dog sits, and why is it talking about where the dog sat? The dog that followed the young man who took refuge in the cave, a dog followed them. But the Qur'an doesn't go into a lot of detail. The color of the dog.
Yeah.
That's the old famous kind of like example they use. What color was the dog?
What color was the dog?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
But the Qur'an does describe how the dog sat
Yeah.
and where the dog sat.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Because there are lessons in that.
Amazing.
You
Amazing.
know, it's interesting.
So, what are our favorite lessons from
you
this
were,
story?
you were actually sharing that the great Indian philosopher, scholar, Abul Hassan Ali Nadwi, rahimahullah ta'ala, you were sharing something he said.
So he has a book called As-Sira' Bain al-Imani wal-Maddiya.
Yes.
It was actually originally some articles that he wrote in the 70s for an Egyptian magazine. And then he sees post-colonial influence, the Arab Muslim world is unfolding into this new beast. And he wanted to republish them again to draw the attention of this Muslim audience to Surah Kahf.
Nice.
And Mana Abul Hassan al-Nadwi rahmatullahi alayhi, he starts off his book by saying that I would read Surah Kahf every week out of devotion and command of my mother.
Wow.
She would tell me to read it every. But then as I grew in tafsir and grew in my studies and taught Qur'an for so many years, he said I began to ask out of the entire Qur'an, why did the Prophet ﷺ appoint Surah Kahf as the antidote to the fitna of Dajjal? Why this one?
Why this one?
So his summary is how he titled the book, As-Sira' Bain al-Imani wal-Maddiya, the struggle or the fight, the battle between materialism and faith. And he says if there was one ayah of the whole surah that I would say is the khulasa, the summary of the whole thing, the whole surah hinges on this one ayah, it's وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا إِن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
All surahs, all stories of the whole surah boil down to that one ayah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Even some of the more later contemporary kind of scholars who kind of again focused on a lot on the structure within a surah and stuff like that. People like Amin Ahsan Islahi in Tadabbur Qur'an or Dr. Fadl Samarai or Dr. Isra Ahmed rahimahullah, like a lot of these people, they all point to that.
Wow.
Yeah.
The whole surah is basically materialism and faith.
Okay.
And materialism can only play its role illa in yasha Allah, by the permission of Allah.
It's also like another way to also look at it is it's like the conflicting viewpoints between faith and the secular, godless, a God-centric view of the world,
Yeah.
and a godless view of the world. So saying وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ, because the whole godless point of view is I control my destiny.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm doing this.
I'm doing it. I'm gonna make it happen.
Yep.
My money, my resources, my power
Make
is
it
gonna make it
happen.
happen. Inshallah.
Illa inshallah.
Now you take it over to the young men. The material challenge here is that their lives are on the line.
Yeah.
The king is searching for them. They believe. And it's fascinating that the Jews asked this question to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because in their tradition there is no reference of this story at all.
Oh.
Because this incident happens, they're Jewish, they're Christian men, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it happens
yeah.
after Isa alayhi salam.
Yeah.
So they actually refuse this and view this as like a heresy,
Yes.
the whole thing.
Yes.
They asked about it thinking that maybe this whole thing is a big bluff. Or maybe they knew that it was true, but they were rejecting it. I don't know which way to look at it. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then recites to them the verses. So these young men, their life is on the line and they're challenged because if they stand for their faith, like in today's world, you stand for the truth, you get canceled. You stand for your belief in justice, you lose your job.
Yeah.
You stand for your belief in.
We've seen it right now, right? Over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
People that are like talking about or vocalizing or voicing their opinions and the truth.
Yeah.
Not just their opinion, the truth on the genocide in Gaza, speaking out against the, massacre by the Israeli regime against the Muslims and the people of Gaza. People's job, they've lost their jobs. Their jobs have been threatened. Their livelihoods.
It's what do they do?
Yeah.
Like what's the outcome? How do they face the challenge? It's not easy. But these young men are the story. The ayah, I believe it's ayah number 13.
Yes.
It starts with وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. We strengthened, we tied it.
Yeah.
We strengthened their
Same thing that was told to the mother of Moses.
Yeah, ربطنا على قلبها.
We strengthened her heart in that tough moment.
Yeah.
So maybe a lesson for us is you bite the bullet, you go forward, Allah will give you the strength that you never even thought you would have in that moment.
Yeah.
People will look back like, how'd you do that? You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Allah gave me strength in that moment.
Can I ask you guys a question on that note?
Yeah.
I know some people who are a little skeptical, and they say that we hear people talking about sacrifice. They're telling other people to sacrifice, but the question is that, are they making the sacrifices themselves? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course,
And I don't want to make you guys feel uncomfortable in any way at all, but maybe like a story that you have of a friend, a teacher, a parent, if you feel comfortable yourself, any sort of sacrifice where you feel that there was a decision that had to be made, and what the outcome of that, like what have you seen your Suratul Ashab al-Kahf in your life?
Yeah, I have a story.
Yeah.
I'll keep it anonymous because I know this man, he wanted it to stay anonymous. He's passed away recently in the last 2 years. There was a individual who became Hafid in a late age of 40s and 50s, and he lived in Mecca. Yeah, we called him Mekki. He lived in Mecca, and he made an oath that after he became Hafid, that every day from Maghrib to Isha, he would stand in Salat al-Awabin. Okay, the salat in between, just nafil prayers in between Maghrib and Isha. It so happened that he was very educated. He lived in Saudi. He was Mekki. It so happened that he got a job offer, a brilliant job offer for an oil company. And it was a great, amazing, Saudi money, right? Amazing. And it would necessitate that he would not be able to pray Awabin. So he denied it. And his whole family went against him. They all said, this is insane. What are you doing? This is like Awabin, it's nafil. And I need to put this in context for people. He's not being asked to give up a fard prayer. He's not being asked to take off.
Give up Jum'ah.
Give Jum'ah. You know what I mean? He's being asked to sacrifice something that he's made wajib on himself.
Voluntary prayer.
Yeah. And you go, shaitan comes, you can give sadaqah with that money, you get everything. He says no. His family berates him for it. It's a big deal. A few months later, the Saudi government is building a highway, and they need his property. And they pay the highest dollar you could imagine. Generational wealth set. Generational wealth. So the sacrifice in the moment, he didn't know what would happen 3 months later, But he said,
and this is someone that you know.
I've met him. I've seen.
Is someone that you've seen.
Funny? I've seen him pray the Awabin. I heard the story, and then I met him, but I was like, I want to see if he actually. So I made sure to meet him at Maghrib time, and sure enough, from Maghrib to Isha, he's like, all right, Assalamu alaikum, nice to meet you. Allahu Akbar. I was like, yo, this is the guy. So Allahu Akbar. You said sacrifice, and that story just came to my mind of someone I know.
Shaykh?
Yeah, there's a few different. I'll mention one of them, but it ends in a little bit of a different place, but ultimately still ends in a good place. One of my teachers, Assam Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala.
The Mufassir.
He, spoke out about the truth. There were particular just troubles and fitnas in the Muslim community in Pakistan, in the country at that time. And, especially like people saying inappropriate things about the Qur'an, casting aspersions on the Prophet ﷺ. And he clearly spoke about that. And they targeted him and they assassinated him.
Oh.
Shaheed. And, again, in the full context of things, was still young, in the grand scheme of things.
Allah.
And his children were still young. And last time I was visiting overseas, I went to his grave, and, right next to there is this huge masjid. Attached to that is a huge school. And his sons are all grown up. And they're running a whole entire school and masjid, and there's like thousands and thousands of people benefiting there. So it's like the work carries on. The legacy goes on. Whatever little bit of work we're able to do here, that I can contribute, or his more better qualified students are able to contribute, all spread out across the world, all that khair goes back to him.
Sadaqah Jariyah.
Exactly. So it's like, you make that sacrifice.
He could have done so much. He could have done so many things.
Yeah.
But he buried himself and attached his heart to the Quran, and that was a sacrifice.
And I'm sure he
then
knew.
defending the authenticity
Yes.
of the Quran and the honor of the Prophet ﷺ.
So Shaykh, I'm sure someone said to him, hey, you know, if you bring this up,
Yeah, like, hey, just chill.
chill. But there's the sacrifice.
There's a sacrifice that, no, there's a right and there's a wrong. Like we were talking about when we started off, that there's a doctor or there's a brother or there's a sister in their job, in their school even, where someone's saying something very vile and inappropriate about, you know, Gaza and Palestine and the people there, and, you know, speaking about like supporting the genocidal regime and things like that. And they're like, at that moment, it's kind of like, like you were saying, family or some friends or some whatever would be like, just chill, it's okay, just let it go, don't say anything. Why put yourself into trouble? But there's a choice about what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
There's a sacrifice to be made in that moment.
Yeah.
These decisions are so difficult.
Yeah.
But the truth is that they're a moment for us to live by our iman.
They're always worth it. It's always worth it after the fact. And we won't always know it in that moment. But just like these young men, it was made evident 300 years later
Allahu
that the
Akbar.
sacrifice was worth it.
300 سنين.
Yeah. You know, for this story, what sticks out to me the most, I mean, for our audience listening, this story, there's an oppressive king. He's trying to force idolatry down everyone's throats. And these young men say, no, we can't do this. There is one God, that's it, we can't. And they run off to this cave seeking refuge.
I was thinking فَأْوِلَ الْكَهْفِ.
Yeah, they run off to this cave. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
So there's two things. First thing is that they're oppressing. He's oppressing them. They're able to say no because they actually know what they believe in.
Okay.
They really have an identity.
Yeah.
How does someone say no to something if they don't have an identity themselves?
Yeah, Allahu
You know
Akbar.
that riwayah إِمَّعَةً
Yes.
لا
Yeah,
تكون إمعة
Yes.
إن أحسن الناس أحسننا.
Yes.
Where the
Translate that. Yeah.
Well, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said don't be like blind followers.
Yeah.
Wishy-washy.
Wishy-washy, like ma'a, I'm with you.
I'm with
you.
everyone.
I'm with everyone. If they do good, I'm with them, and if they do
You blow the way the wind blows.
Yes.
that
that's the
tumbleweed,
hadith.
Yes, tumbleweed.
that tumbleweed, that they just follow along. But you have to have an identity. And then the other part of that, فَأْوِلَ الْكَهْفِ, and the surah is called like kahf, the cave, right? That when things get noisy, when the world gets messy, when everywhere you look has fitna, fasad, when there's like no modesty, when there is backbiting, when things get really bad, and the social world is no longer a safe place, you got to go to your cave, man.
Need a cave.
You need a cave.
And everyone's got to figure out what their cave is,
Yeah.
right? You know, the masjid
Yeah.
can be a cave. Again, this is not like, I'm not trying to plug anything, but I can only talk about that which I know intimately.
Yeah.
What we, like a part of our thought process, because even at the level of the seminary, which is like very intense study full time, we talk about ta'aleem, education, academics, tarbiyah, that practical training, spiritual doing, but we also then talk about suhbah, fellowship.
Yes.
You belong here.
Yeah.
This is your family. This is your spiritual family. So at the seminary, we have that element. On the community side, with the masjid, with roots, like we have that element of like, it can be your cave.
Yes.
You can come take refuge here.
And you have other people with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this cave is profound. I have an insight on the cave too I want to share. I think you could have a physical cave, right? And there's a whole concept of a bubble, living in a bubble, not
Yes.
living in a bubble. I don't want to go into it. I think I'm at an age now.
I can already say that one thing. People speak in too many absolutes.
Exactly.
You gotta be in a bubble. Oh, don't be in a bubble. Bro, like you're speaking in absolutes.
Yeah. Any people that are trying to better themselves in any field surround themselves with people of the like mind.
Got it.
Fitness and sports and finance. You surround
So the
yourself
bubble
with
can be good, and it can become a problem at some point.
Yes.
But it's all about like who, when, how.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Now, another part of the cave I want to add, though, I think an aspect of a cave can be intense focus and dedication to a craft, a skill, a development of something. For example, It could be academic.
Yeah.
It could be meaning we think of a cave as a physical, but sometimes you need to occupy yourself with a task.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes, I'll give an example. Sometimes for me, when I'm writing, I'm able to block out so much and there's not a lot of noise because of the intensity of the focus on the work. So I think sometimes people could look at a cave as intense focus on something. It could be Qur'an. You're trying to get your Qur'an better.
Yeah.
You're trying to learn Arabic down. There could be some social things. So I wanted to add that to it. And I don't think it always has to be a place.
I agree with you.
But it could be a mental place that you
Yeah.
go to.
It can be a practice. It can be a group of people.
I heard about
A masjid. How beautiful is that?
Hey,
That's the best.
I heard about Shaykh when he was a student. I heard about Shaykh when he was a student.
I want to hear this.
That
I want to do this. Wait up. Let me just cherish this moment. It's on camera. It's Ramadan.
from what I heard, he came first in his class almost every year.
MashaAllah.
From the-
And how many students? Hold on, how many students? Quite a bit, right?
It's from the 1800s, right?
But from what I heard,
was
he was
on
just. No, there's no cameras back then. Yeah.
Well, now it is.
It's on camera.
Old black and white, like the guy goes under the hood.
We got one black and white picture of him over a book studying somewhere. No, see, that's a cave though.
Yeah, yeah. it is.
That's a cave in the sense of I'm intellectually, mentally, or spiritually engaged in the action so much that I block out other
yeah.
things, and that's okay to have that sometimes.
Yeah,
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
If it's by choice.
Yeah.
I think the echo chambers and those bubbles that you're speaking about that are problematic is ones that are forced on you through algorithms versus something you chose.
Yeah, I love it.
The ayah, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُم بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I love it, and I love that you said algorithm because low key, if we look at the algorithm, it keeps you in a bubble too.
It does. But that's a negative one.
Yeah, but it's reinforcing just. Oh my God, that's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. And you think you're surfing the web, bro. You're not anywhere. You're literally in one corner.
Very little. You know that.
Crazy.
I believe the term is you're getting cooked.
You're getting cooked. Yeah. Right, literally.
You think that you're free. This is the irony in it. We think we're free, but that riwayah, that statement. ابتعثنا الله لنخرج العباد.
That's it. من عبادة العباد إلى عبادة رب العباد.
Right when we think we're free, we've been emancipated from God. When we look over our shoulder, we realize someone else is already standing.
leash on us.
Yeah.
But that person has a vested interest. For Allah, Ra'uf Rahim. Allah gets nothing out of this. Only we benefit.
Subhanallah. So yeah, to kind of wrap it up, this beautiful story of Ashab al-Kahf, the young man who took refuge in the cave. There is a profound miracle in this story, and the miracle is very important for us to reflect on. But the moral of the story, the moral behind the miracle, is a bigger lesson that there's a million different challenges that are going to come at us, especially when we're young, but all throughout our lives. And whenever those challenges come at us, we're going to need to find a refuge. We're going to need to find a safe place. We're going to need to find somewhere, something that can fortify, that can strengthen, that can save our iman. And that's a lesson that we get from this story. And right now we're in Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our cave, our refuge, the Qur'an.
Yes.
Ameen ya
Yes.
Rabbil Alameen.
Yes.
Barakallahu
Ameen.
feekum. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.